Have you ever been in a conversation with someone you love and out of nowhere it just turns hostile? Like you're talking to a complete stranger and they don't even seem like themselves anymore. Well, today we are diving deep into a really fascinating and supposedly lost Gnostic teaching. It claims to have the exact technique for neutralizing that kind of negative attack in your most important relationships.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to uncover the story behind this forgotten teaching. Then we'll get into what the source material calls the Archon connection to really understand where this problem comes from. After that, we'll learn the 5 key signs to look for. I'll walk you step by step through the silencing technique itself. And finally, we'll look at what you can expect to happen right after you use it. You don't cast it out, you silence it. This one line is really at the core of everything we're talking about today. In the source material, it's attributed to Jesus, and it suggests a totally different way of dealing with this kind of negativity. It's not about a big dramatic fight, it's about something else entirely. It's a pretty powerful and mysterious place to start, right?
Okay, so let's set the scene. According to the source, our story begins in a busy marketplace in Galilee. It's here that Jesus and his disciples apparently witnessed this bizarre, totally over-the-top outburst of anger. And that moment became the catalyst for this whole forgotten teaching.
So the story goes that this marketplace incident led to a powerful lesson on how to shut down manipulation. And the claim here is that this technique was actually erased from the Bible on purpose by the early church. Now, why would they do that? Well, the thinking is, if you could handle these kinds of spiritual attacks on your own, you wouldn't need the church as a middleman, right? It would reduce their spiritual authority. It's said that the Gnostics, these early Christian groups who were all about direct personal knowledge, were the ones who kept this teaching alive.
And this brings us right to the main event, the Archon connection. This is the source's explanation for why these sudden, crazy fights happen. It suggests that the real problem isn't the person in front of you, it's an outside influence. So, what in the world is an Archon? The source defines them as these non-physical beings that exist in a frequency right next to ours, just out of sight. And here's the critical part. They supposedly need a human vehicle or a host to actually interact with our world and manipulate things. This idea is absolutely central to the whole technique. So how does this whole thing work? Well, it's laid out in 3 steps. It all starts with an emotional bond. You know, the deep connection you have with family, partners, or close friends. That bond creates a kind of energetic pathway. Step 2, an Archon latches onto that person's energy field. And then step 3 is the activation. The source claims that at a moment when you are at your most vulnerable, or maybe right when you're about to have a major breakthrough, the entity activates. It uses your loved one like a portal to launch an attack.
And this, right here, is the crucial shift in perspective. The huge mistake we all make is blaming the person, your partner, your friend, your parent. But this teaching flips the script entirely. It says you're not actually dealing with them. You're dealing with an entity that is using them. Just understanding that distinction is the very first step towards shutting the whole thing down. Okay, so if this is really happening, how would you even know? How can you spot it in the moment? That brings us to the 5 key signs of influence. Think of it as a diagnostic checklist that comes straight from the source material. The source gives us 5 telltale signs to watch for. First up, a sudden energy shift. The person becomes hostile for no good reason. Second, a disproportionate reaction. They have a complete meltdown over something tiny. Third, check their eyes. They might look empty, distant, or just weirdly intense. Fourth, listen to what they're saying. They might use words or phrases that are totally out of character for them, but are perfectly designed to hit your deepest insecurities. And finally, the aftermath. Later, they might not really remember what happened, or they'll say something like, "I don't know why I got so upset." That's a huge clue that something else was pulling the strings. So you've recognized the signs. Now for the big question. What do you actually do? This brings us to the heart of the teaching, the silencing technique itself, which is broken down into 3 key parts. Now, the source is really clear about what not to do. Our first instinct is to fight back, right? We want to confront the person, argue with the ridiculous things they're saying, or try to cast out all that negativity. But according to this teaching, doing any of that is like throwing gasoline on a fire. It actually feeds the entity the emotional energy it wants. The alternative isn't to fight, it's to silence. The technique itself is a surprisingly simple 3-step process. And the wildest part? It's all done silently inside your own head. It starts with recognizing what's happening, moves to a very specific place to look, and ends with a silent 9-word declaration of your own authority. Step 1 is all about flipping a switch in your mind. The second the attack starts, you just silently say to yourself, "This is not them." That simple recognition is said to instantly shift your entire frequency. You go from being the emotional victim of the attack to being a calm, neutral observer. And just like that, you've cut off the emotional food supply that the entity was after.
Okay, step 2 is a very specific physical action. You don't look them in the eyes. That just reinforces the hostile connection. And you don't look away because that signals fear. Instead, you gently shift your gaze to the point right between their eyebrows, their third eye center. According to the teaching, this is like pulling back the curtain. You're looking at them, but you're seeing through them, and that's supposed to completely destabilize the entity's cover. And finally, step 3. This is the command. While you're holding your gaze on that point, you state this silently, but with total conviction. In your mind, "I see the Archon," not the person. The Archon has no voice here. See, it's not a prayer or a request. It's a declaration. That last part, "the Archon has no voice here," is the definitive silencing command. So you've done it. You've gone through all 3 steps. What happens now? Well, in our last section here, after the silence, we're going to look at the immediate results you can expect to see and also cover some really critical warnings that come along with this. According to the source, the results are immediate and obvious. First, you will literally feel that emotional hook release inside of you. Their words just won't hurt anymore. Second, you'll see a visible shift in them. They might trail off mid-sentence, get a confused look on their face, or suddenly seem exhausted as all that aggressive energy just deflates. And third, if they do try to start up again, the attack will just feel hollow, powerless. Now, this is really important. This technique comes with some serious warnings. This is not a tool to win arguments with your spouse. It's meant for what the source calls genuine Archon-level manipulation. It is also vital that you never explain what you just did to the person afterward, and you have to be prepared. Some relationships that are built on that kind of manipulative dynamic might just fall apart. The flip side, though, is that genuine, healthy relationships will actually get stronger once this interference is gone for good.
So, when you boil it all down, what's the ultimate goal here? It's to restore what the source calls your spiritual sovereignty. By learning how to silence this outside influence, you supposedly close the main door that these entities use to get to you, which is through your closest emotional bonds. You become unreachable, not by building walls, but by building discernment.
And that leaves us with one last provocative question that the source material itself raises. If any individual has the power to personally and directly shut down negative spiritual influence, what does that imply about our need for big external systems of spiritual authority? It's a profound thought to end on, for sure.